Boom. Here we are. It's time for adulting. So, like an adult, I have shown up on time, barely ready, but ready nonetheless. We've got our Muppet mug. Have you considered? It has been a heck of a week. Things continue to get more and more crazy by the moment. And so I think part of the problem, I've talked about maturity before, this will stray into the maturity territory, obviously. Part of the problem is you have a bunch of immature people, and then the more mature people looking at them don't understand anything about what's going on. So they make wild negative assumptions because they see negative things. And some of the things that they see as negative are not. It's just that they're negative to them and they're idiots. And some of the things they see as negative are definitely negative, but they might be necessary. And there might be some negative things with no upside. I don't know. I'm not going to say that for sure because that's not clear at all. And I think if somebody thinks it's clear, they're a moron. I think things are not clear. And if you think things are clear, I think you've got a problem because things are not. We're living in chaos. Bubbles are popping. People are noticing bubbles that have been growing for a very long time and go, "Oh my goodness!" It's like it's been there for a long time and it hasn't had a negative effect. So maybe it's just a bubble like yours. It'll be fine. So we're seeing a lot of weird things going on, and like I said, a lot of it's just due to immaturity. It's due to people not understanding immaturity and reading it as bad. The bottom line is the 3-year-old that hits the cat is not a bad person, right? It's not a bad 3-year-old. They have done something wrong, but it didn't know any better. That can be fixed as long as you don't panic and you treat it appropriately. So that's why we need some adulting skills. Now, I know adulting was a big thing a while back and sort of less so now, but I think it's still important. It's still important to understand what adulting is, what it means, why it's important, all of that. So I'm going to try and go over some of that. But first, let us open our tome because Nassim Nicholas Taleb is awesome. And see what we get. Counter narratives. The best revenge on a liar is to convince him that you believe what he said. Very true. Boy, man, that hits hard in light of the Groyper conspiracy people, right? The best revenge on a liar is to convince him that you believe what he said. That, in fact, is the best revenge on a liar. Man, Taleb knocks it out of the park with his aphorisms. That book is great. Everybody should read all of Taleb's books. You can get in Inserto. That's all of his books, including an updated copy of Better Procrustes. I got it when I came out, so mine is a first edition, blah blah blah, whatever first printing thing from very long ago. So yeah, there's so many things, so many things going on, and I think part of the problem is adults lose their minds when they see people that are of advanced age who aren't adulting. And so it's worth kind of diving into. So does this still matter or is all the adulting done? Well, I think it still matters. I think all the quote adulting that was done 10, 11, 12, 14 years ago was a big adulting thing was big. I think it's still big. I think all the adulting stuff that was done was conveying, usually through the internet, procedures to people to do the things that adults do. And that's very useful and it's very helpful and it's better than nothing. But flat world, internet, whatever, you're not fully formed, right? So that's what prevents adulting, a lack of formation, not education. The education thing is a psyop. You hear people use the word education, be very, very careful. Figure out what the hell they're talking about because it's probably irrelevant, right? We have tons of highly educated, immature children with advanced age. So whatever the education thing is, it didn't work. Right? We can just say that didn't work. We've got 2 generations of not working, this education BS. Okay. And we have the most educated society in history. There's no question about that. And yet we have a bunch of children running around doing childish things and being amused by childish things. Now, I'm not knocking on anybody. Childish humor has its place, right? We all need to go back to childish humor once in a while, although I wish it weren't the grosser jokes. But it's kind of important, right? So I'm not casting that as a bad thing. If you do, that's your problem. Don't make it mine. I got plenty of problems. I don't need that one too. You keep your problems to yourself, right? So this whole education thing doesn't work. We need to get that out of the way. This age of gnosis, propositions as knowledge is the highest value nonsense failed us utterly, completely. It has caused, or at least heavily contributed to all the problems that we see, whether it's the Groypers or it's the psyops or it's the conspiracy theories or it's the fact the FBI thinks it's perfectly okay to incite riots in the Capitol and not own up to it immediately. Whatever it is, I don't care. Okay? This didn't work. You've educated people into what can fairly be called LARPing, where the FBI thinks they're an infiltration organization that's supposed to cause problems that it can then fix. That only comes from bizarre ways of educating people and failing to form them. Because if you form people, they realize immediately that's self-referential parasitic garbage. Because if you actually function in the world, immediately you would know that. You would mature and realize, oh, as an adult, we know this isn't the way the FBI is supposed to work. Or whatever. There's hundreds of examples. I'm picking on that one because I'm a little pissed off. And the Groypers have a point. And until we realize Groypers are telling the truth and having a point, you're just actually going to make that much, much worse. So if you could please stop, that would be fantastic. So why are we stuck in this age of gnosis? Why are we worshiping knowledge through education as merely propositions? Because it's really all we've been doing to people is giving a bunch of propositions and saying this is how the world works. And of course, that was just wrong. Like everything we told them how the world works is wrong. Why are we here? Like what happened? What happened is lack of responsibility. You should be forming your children. Your children should have been formed by their parents. We got away from that. We caused a bunch of immature children. And that's part of the problem. It's a bunch of immature children of advanced age who have been educated or told propositionally, this is how the world works. Look at these outlier examples. Clearly, this is the norm. Who haven't interacted with the world and actually learned to observe the world, which is a whole separate set of skills. It's nothing to do with anything they teach in school anymore. And we're here. What has school been doing, or the education system in general, been doing, we'll say at the lower education levels, because we have two education systems in the United States. No one ever talks about that. I don't know why. The upper education system is fantastic, best in the world, no question about it. Lower education system is, bottom 160th or some garbage, right? It's trash, right? But the bottom end of the education system has been concerned primarily with making the propositional tyranny into a procedural tyranny. Okay? They've taken some certain things. I know I've talked about this elsewhere. I'm going to harp on it because it's super important. No one's talking about it. Really, we got to understand the source of the problem. You want to know why Nick Fuentes is popular? You have to understand source of problem. Source of problems, this quote, education bullshit that's been foisted on everybody for decades now, myself included. I mean, I escaped most of it, right? Partly because I went to a Catholic junior high school and first year of high school, actually, before I transferred into a public school. And look, Lowell public schools are actually pretty good, all things considered. Back when I went, probably not anymore, right? So these people took certain things out of the school, maybe not entirely, but mostly. What did they take out? They reduced gym, recess, music, art, and religion. What do those 5 things have in common? They're participatory. They're about interacting with the world. Religion, more metaphorically, we'll say, or symbolically would be the correct way to talk about it. Metaphor is one form of symbolism, right? Where you connect things together, we'll say, in a more propositional fashion. That would be a metaphor, but it's still symbolic because it's a thing that represents something else, or in this case, represents two things at once, right? Or at least where they're similar enough. No problem with that. But we've taken that out. We got rid of it. And they snuck in the getting rid of art and music and gym and recess along with the religion, because why not? We're shuffling things up. We might as well get rid of all the good things at once, because those are the good and important parts of school. Everything else is dressing. It might be necessary dressing, but it's dressing. This is all propositional. No good. No good. And then you can tell people, oh yeah, World Trade Tower 7 is proof that the government, no, it's not. They swapped the picture on you, idiot. You just didn't notice that they swapped the picture. That's it. There's no mystery there at all. They just actually swapped. I looked into this many times. I've shown it to many people. Swap the picture. It's a different building. That's what they did. No big deal. It's not a conspiracy. You're just crazy if you think the government would do something like that. There's no reason for a complicated explanation. I already saw that, oh, conspiracy theories are now the Occam's razor explanation for everything. I'm like, except by definition, they are never the Occam's razor. Ever. So like, why are we in? Well, because we're stuck in this propositional tyranny. We're stuck in this age of gnosis. And the thing is, we trained people specifically with procedures, and using procedures, we can survive the world. There's a procedural tyranny indeed, right? Propositional tyranny begets the procedural tyranny. Everybody looks autistic. Been over this before. And if you have some really good procedures and you can execute them well, and you say, see that part of the world well, you can make lots of money, like Elon Musk, right? And still be completely immature, like Elon Musk. Maybe he's not completely immature, but my goodness, is he immature in some ways? Like, really? And you see this when people are put under pressure. They break down, like Elon Musk, among others. Lots of people are like this stuff. Lots and lots of people online. They just break down. When you tell them, no, you're wrong, they just break down. I had a big Twitter argument with people over EMPs. I'll tell you something about electromagnetic pulse. I once worked with a guy who I knew before I worked there, by the way. Brilliant man. I think he had 13 or 14 patents at the time that I knew him. And I was young then. I was a teenager practically. Yeah, I think it was 19. And he was a nuclear physicist, among other things. Absolutely brilliant. He had done an internship at some military, I think it was Draper Labs, to be honest, but I don't remember. It was a very long time. And he knew it like a thing or two, right? But he had done an internship, and when he was there, he developed a spread chart for radiation. In other words, where the bomb explodes, how much radiation, all the time. He did it in this visible chart, and then he was told, like 15 years later or something insane, that his charts were still in use in like Cheyenne Mountain and the other top secret areas to that day. It didn't really bother him much. He was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Went well on his way, because he's obviously a genius and a very eccentric genius. Quite an interesting guy. So one day he was in my office, and instead of talking software, I was working in a software company, I asked him about EMPs, and he actually just drew on my whiteboard and explained the whole thing to me. And he was very good at that, so that helps. I knew a little bit already, but he like explained it to me and showed it to me visually. So I know quite a bit about EMPs. I'm getting this argument on Twitter with these guys who are like, oh, if we lost electricity, 90% of people would die. And I'm like, bro, 90% of the people on the earth don't have access to electricity now. Obviously not true. I'm trying to explain to him all these examples. And I'm like, fuel oil? Oh, yeah. If we lost fuel oil, that would be a problem. There's no question about that. But electricity? No, we don't need electricity. Sucks for internet people like me. And like, listen, if we lose electricity, I'm not going to be on. Okay, I'm just going to tell you. I do pretty much rely on grid power, although not entirely. I got a solar setup out there, and I could charge cell phones and stuff. No problem. I can run the laptop for a few hours, things like that. But yeah, that solar setup, even down south, whatever. I'd have to grab all the solar cells, and yeah, we'd have to do some major work. But this guy was having none of it, and I was like, bro, fuel oil predates electricity. Couldn't understand it. The kid just couldn't. He had a mental breakdown and kept telling me I didn't know what I was talking about. He says, nobody knows how to navigate, without modern equipment. I go, I actually have 2 books on it, and I'm a sailor. So I physically, personally do know how to do that. So you're just wrong there. Like, EMP doesn't work the way you think it does. You have to be a lot closer to the explosion than you think. It's not actually the explosion. It's a little complicated. I'm not going to go into it here. I did have it explained to me by somebody who actually knows it, though. And I was explaining to him, the US government actually has manuals on what to do in the event of an EMP or massive loss of electricity through any means, because they have different scenarios. And you just go read them. They're public. He was having none of it. Completely immature reaction. He's like, you're just not listening, bro. I'm like, no, I know people who live in the rural. I've lived in the rural. I know people who live in the mountains without electricity. Like, this isn't that hard to understand if you know people, but he doesn't know anybody. He thinks he does. He thinks he knows all the people he knows rely on electricity. I can believe that. I don't. It sucks when I don't have electricity. Don't get me wrong. Even when I camp, I would prefer electricity, although I go camping without it all the time. So not that big a deal, but like, yeah, it's a little uncomfortable. But as long as I have a bathroom and a little bit of running water, I'm good. I'm good. Complete freak out. And that's the thing. We have a bunch of people who are old, and when they're put under pressure, they break down. They have a tantrum. They can't deal with it. They can't handle life anymore. Once their procedures are disrupted, it's all over for them. They're not able to adult. It's still a problem. All we've given them previously are procedures. So we've buttressed the problem a little bit, made it a little bit better. Good work. Good work. That's good. Not enough, though. Didn't go far enough. And look, I saw this when I was young, way before this problem, right? So I remember clearly the day I saw a full-on adult in his 30s have a temper tantrum like a 3-year-old. And it was so strange. It was so weird. I think I've talked about this before. I'll tell the story again because it goes to the point of adulting and how I can recognize this so easily. I was at the GNU labs at MIT on the campus, which is the it was the Free Software Foundation. I don't know if they're calling themselves the Open Software Foundation now or not. I think there's still the Free Software Foundation. The guy who coined that term has popped his ugly head back up to talk about politics, but he's an idiot. He was an idiot then. He's an idiot now. He'll probably continue to be an idiot indefinitely unless some revelation hits him, but I see no evidence of that. Anyway, the guy who started the Free Software Foundation is Richard Stallman. Now, because I hung out at the labs, I typed for Stallman once. I actually have been paid by the Free Software Foundation way back. It was in the 80s, right? Probably the late 80s. I know the guy. Like, I've had dinner with him a few times. I don't know if he'd recognize me. It was a long time ago, whatever. I only see him every once in a while, every 5-10 years, maybe at most. And, that's always a experience. I like Richard, don't get me wrong, but also a little weird, right? We were going to dinner and somebody mentioned a different place than Richard's favorite place in Framingham. And he completely broke down and threw a temper tantrum. And I'm like, here's a man in his 30s who runs this lab. Everybody looks up to him. They would do actually anything for this guy for whatever reason. Fair enough. Like, he was a legend, right? He's a MacArthur grant winner and everything. And he's just having a breakdown because somebody mentioned a different place to eat. Of course, we ended up going to his place anyway because everybody felt bad. It's a weird crew. The hippies in Somerville were weird. And the ones in Cambridge were pretty much the same because there was no differentiation back then. It was Cambridge right into Somerville, weird hippies. Right out of California, unfortunately. Cambridge and California are actually the same place, connected by a portal, I'm convinced. You get the same vibes in both places. It was strange to watch a 30-year-old have a meltdown and like stamp his feet and I don't wanna, like a 3-year-old. It was really uncomfortable. So I've seen this before. I'm familiar with this. So the question is, how do we avoid this problem? How do we avoid becoming this or turning into this? Because yes, just as with maturity, which I mentioned in a previous live stream, right? You can lose your adulting skill and basically revert back to acting like an oversized child. That's happening. Now, look, we had the fake news virus scam, also did a live stream on that, right? Like that caused us to lose a lot of skills. Some of those skills are the skills of adulting. Some of those skills are the skills that I am going to talk about here. Okay. So a bunch of people slid from maturity into immaturity, from ability to adult to inability to adult. That happened. We need to recognize it. We need to just acknowledge these facts. They're observable facts. So the question is, what are the components that make someone a mature adult? That, of course, was the challenge that Sally had for me this morning at like 10 a.m. my time or something, maybe later, I forget. And somehow, through some mystical force, I was able to deliver. I hope you like the list. Number 1, consistency. Show up and do the thing. You got to show up. You got to be there when you're needed on a regular basis. You have to. If you can't do that, you're not an adult. It's that simple. No, it doesn't mean you're useless, but you're worth less. You're not worth as much as you would be if you were consistent. If you were consistently showing up and doing the thing, that's one of the 5. We're going to do 5 qualities of being an adult. If you aren't consistent, you have less value because discipline matters. Discipline matters a lot. Undisciplined people are unreliable. It's not the only way one can be unreliable, but it will make you unreliable all by itself. It's an asymmetrical relationship there. Showing that you are putting in the time, energy, and attention, video coming soon, matters. And this is one way. And the caveat here, because there's always a caveat, it's always a trade-off, is that leeches with nothing better to do will just show up consistently because they have nothing better to do. But they won't put in the time, energy, and attention. They'll just show up. So you have to be aware of that. Right? You can't say, oh, this person's consistent and therefore they're good and useful and worth more than others. That's not necessarily true. But without consistency, you can't adult. It's just straight out of Compton, not going to happen. Number 2, doing the thing. Whatever it is that must be done right now, you got to do the thing. You can't be a leech. You can't be a parasite. You can't have nothing better to do. So you'll put your body in this place and let things happen around you over here instead of where you were. That doesn't work. Right? So it's a consistency plus the doing the thing. And there's always something that needs to be done. There's always something that you need to do or that somebody needs to do and you're able to do. Whether you want to or not is a different story. There's always something like that. Dr. Jordan B. Peterson talked about this, right? Look for opportunity where responsibility has been abandoned. There's a thing, do it consistently. It's always something that you can do consistently that needs to be done that will give you greater value, greater stability in your own life. It may seem like a waste of time. You could be video gaming after all. Don't get me started. I got videos. People who do things are worth more. Just doing something is a form of reliability that mere consistency does not convey. So the combination of these two things is very powerful. That's why there's 5 things, right? You're going to combine them all and be more adulting or something. It's fine. So doing the thing is important. And it definitely increases your value, your worth, we'll say, to everybody around you and to yourself. It works. It's a magical property, if you will. Absolutely. Priority number 3. Be aware of what the most important thing is and when that changes. That way you can set priority. I know there's an easy hit here first, right? Like you have to live first. Like you have to take care of yourself. If there's an immediate threat, you just got to do away with it so that you don't die. Could be hunger, thirst, somebody with a club from Antifa, whatever. Don't care. Could be you live in a dangerous neighborhood and there's bullets flying all over the place. Unfortunately, that's an increasing problem post 2020. Weird how these random coincidences happen that I'm sure aren't connected by any sort of causal relationship whatsoever. But there's lots of things like that, right? Do you comfort your girlfriend, or do you take the call from your best friend that you know he needs to talk to you right now? Well, there's an interesting priority problem. That could go either way. But thing is, you can make these determinations, and you should. And being able, I mean, you're not going to do it perfectly every time. You're not going to do it very well at first, but you can learn to do that. Like you can train yourself to do that. And if you can do that, having a sense of priority increases your value. It helps you know what thing to do when you need to do the thing. It helps you know when to break consistency because there's something more important going on than, say, your monthly meeting with the guys or whatever it is, right? It helps you to be able to mediate everything else. You have to have an awareness of an emergency. What is an emergency in this situation? And what isn't an emergency in this situation? A lot of people think everything that happens that isn't what they expect is an emergency. You can call them autistic if you want. I really don't care. Unhelpful. A lot of people have this issue. Just is what it is. You need to be able to discern where the real emergencies are and assume everything else is not an emergency, but needs to be put in a priority order. The thing about emergencies is they break priority order and consume it immediately. Period. Right? You set something on fire. I don't know if you've done that recently or anything, but like, suppose you set your house on fire accidentally somehow. You got to put that out now. Like, you can't wait, right? Because fire kind of grows over time in a very short time frame, right? So, like, boom, all of your previous priorities go out the window, put out the fire. That has happened to me, by the way, in the past. I didn't set my whole house on fire, but there was a fire. It was bad. Lots of smoke. Also, completely unrelated, shower curtains are liquid smoke. Do not release the liquid smoke in your shower curtain. Bad idea. Anyway, don't ask me how I know. And then you've got to be able to acknowledge change as such, because priorities change. An emergency crops up, bang, that's the new priority. Everything else is a zero priority. The emergency dealt with first, right? But when you're not in emergency mode, things have a priority and those priorities change. Sometimes the priority is to eat the apple. Sometimes the apple has a worm in it now. It didn't before, or it's old and rotted. Like, it's no longer a priority to eat the apple. Priorities come and go. Time changes things. It happens. And the thing is, and this is one of the things that came out in my lovely talk with Mathieu Pajot, perhaps we have a memory for importance and we need to train that memory. That would be wrapped up in this priority. I would say priority is probably the closest thing to Dr. John Vervaeke's relevance or realization, right? It's at least wrapped up with it. So it's important, and you can train it. You can hone it and tune it over time, and I think you should. Number 4, Hierarchy. Be aware of your role and how to carry it out in every situation you're likely to encounter. Now, that doesn't include every situation which exists everywhere in the world all at once, or even every situation that exists where you are in this time and place within a time window. No, 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 no. That's not what it entails. Okay. All you need to know is, oh, in the hierarchy, my 4 or 5 or 6 functions, or maybe 3 or 2 or 1 function is this. That's your function. Then you need to have the priorities to tell you when one or more of those functions needs to come first, second, or third, or fourth, or whatever, right? And when you're out of that pattern entirely, when something outside or disruptive to the hierarchy has happened and the priorities have changed, your priority is no longer to maintain your section of the hierarchy because you can't, right? Because it's been interrupted. And the thing is, there's a nice thing about hierarchies. They tell you where you can be useful. Knowing your place in the hierarchy tells you where you can be useful. And maybe that's not the most useful for you personally. Of course, you probably don't know what the most useful for you personally is at the scale of a hierarchy because you're a little dumb and you're very blind and your perspective is extremely limited because it's limited to you, right? And you may feel like, oh, my best quality is X, or I'm really the best person at Y. But that doesn't mean you'd be the best at Y for this hierarchy. Maybe another hierarchy would be, but not this hierarchy. And because we're not beings floating in goo, unconnected from everything else, your greatest skill has nothing to do with what the hierarchy needs. The hierarchy needs what it needs. And you may have to fill a role that isn't your greatest skill. Sorry, it's the way life has always been for every other person ever. You can deal with it too, I promise. Since everybody else that came before you did, think you can handle it. If you put the effort in, you can put the effort in. Right? And the other thing is, a lot of times in the hierarchy, and this is maybe unglamorous, which is why we don't like it, but that skill is important. And even if it doesn't take, we'll say, much skill, it's not a difficult thing, or maybe it's not difficult for you, or maybe it's difficult for anybody. The fact that you're there doing it means it has value, and you doing it makes it valuable at the same time. This is the power of hierarchy. Power of hierarchy is the scaling of your best qualities up into the world. Every time the scaling problem, there's no scaling problem. You've just rejected the hierarchy, and the hierarchy is the thing that scales. Sorry, I hate to break it to everybody. I know some people are freaking out, whatever. And the thing is, being in the hierarchy allows you to focus because, again, you don't have to account for all of the possible things that could ever happen in this situation. You only have to account for the things that you have to deal with as part of the hierarchy and then say, oh, everything else is a broken hierarchy. And hopefully there's a procedure for either fixing them or going to somebody to alert them so that they can give you next steps so you don't have to work it out in your head because they already did. Or maybe somebody before them did and they're just handing it down. Better yet, received knowledge is awesome. You can just go, oh, this person tells me this is my next procedure. I don't know why. I don't need to know why. This will take care of the problem. And usually that works. Doesn't work all the time because nothing works all the time because people. You don't like people? I don't want to tell you. You're stuck on the planet with them. Not much I can do. Can't help you out there. Anxious? Hierarchy is for you. Buy some today. Only $19.95. And if you order now, you get order for free. This hierarchy is order. It's vertical order. It's not mere procedural order because procedural is not hierarchical. It's horizontal. It's flat. Procedures great. Need procedures. Procedures are important. Hierarchy is procedures plus verticality. When you're properly in the hierarchy, you can focus. Your anxiety goes down. You need very little skill. You can just do the thing and not have to worry too much about the rest of the world. If you take advantage of that, it's almost meditative, right? That's when you have time to think about life, the universe, and everything, and the fact the answer is 42 or not 42.3568912 or something. I don't know. Doesn't matter. People are all anxious about those big questions. That's because they won't sit there and do boring work. Sit there and do boring work. You work out those questions while you're doing the boring work. Now you don't have to talk about them with anybody. You've already got them resolved. Yeah, who knew that'd be that easy? Hierarchy is important. Learn about it. Part of adulting. Number 5, take responsibility. That's it. Take responsibility. This is the key to all adulting. I saved the best for last. Things happen in the world with or without you. Stuff is constantly emerging and changing and happening. Emergence is everywhere. It's very boring stuff. It's everywhere. It just happens, right? Here is your chance to make a difference in the world. When you take responsibility for emergence or chaos as such, or a little bit of both, maybe, that is when you are able to cultivate and enhance the world, which I think is super important, right? It's super important that as many people as possible find some emergence or some chaos to be responsible for cultivating and actually make that not random and not chaotic, but try to steer it towards the good, which is rare and difficult. It ain't going to be good on its own, most likely. I mean, it could be because that happens, but like, why take that chance if you can just improve the odds by being responsible? Find something that isn't you. And this is where it helps to know where you end and other things begin. And take care of it. And that is right. Care is the key to responsibility. It's one way or one component of responsibility is care. Very important. Without responsibility, things don't happen. So that's important. Responsibility. Take responsibility. So I'm going to do Goodwill Hunting, right? And I'm going to outlaw the following pattern. Consistency. In the process of Will in the movie maturing, he gets consistent. He doesn't get consistent in the way you think, right? He starts to get consistent when he's dragged out of jail by the brilliant mathematician and told 2 things have to happen. You have to work with me and you have to go see this therapist. And then suddenly his friend says, well, no, I can get you a job where you can make some money at my father's company. He had never done that before because Will was always bouncing around. He was inconsistent. So now, we see consistency here and here. Now I can give you this job. And that's part of his maturing process in the movie. Doing the thing. He would sit, do the math. It was boring for him, but he did it, right? Again, back to the consistency. He would do it, and eventually he would sit and do the therapy as well. And of course, the job, right? The job from his friend's father's company. Priority. He learns priority a couple of different times. First, the court. It's like, no, I'm not letting you off on this clever 1800s law trick you're pulling because you know these books and you read all this law stuff. Right? Oh, the priority gets pulled, really important, under the tutelage of famous mathematician guy from MIT, right? Oh, okay. But then he screws up. He gets to Robin Williams, the therapist in this case, and sort of is disrespectful to his dead wife, pins him up against and says, I will end you. Like, oh yeah. You learn priorities real fast with somebody at your throat telling you that they're going to take you out the next time you screw up. It works really well, actually. I've done it to a number of people. It works fantastically well. Just going to tell you. You can be mad about it if you want. So he learns priority. Hierarchy. How does Will in the movie learn about hierarchy? Showing up to work, realizing there's tension between the mathematician and his assistant, who's saying, listen, people would kill to be in this situation. There's the indication, because the acting in that movie is so good. It's so good. Such a good movie. There's an indication that he's jealous and a little upset that Will isn't taking his position seriously enough, right? He's continually reorienting in the hierarchy of therapy, right? And then he's accepting his role as tearing down buildings with a sledgehammer with his best friend. Excellent. And it's his best friend in real life too, which is kind of cool. Or at least it was back then. So he got comfortable with that. And he got comfortable with transcending the hierarchy. Obviously, that's mostly what the movie is about. Like, you can be rebellious, but eventually you're going to go to jail, have a miserable life. Pretty much what the movie's about. It's about other things too, but that message is clearly there. And take responsibility. Ultimately, Will takes responsibility for the conditions of his life. And at the same time, teaches his therapist how to do the same. And say, if you just cared about this thing, instead of wallowing in the past, which both men are doing, then your life would improve. And then he's able to find a third way. He didn't go back to where he was. He didn't ascend to the halls of higher mathematics or higher academia. He finds a third way. He chases the girl. So hopefully you can see how the pattern of adulting, Will becoming an adult and Good Will Hunting, is right there. And why those 5 things work. Are they the only things? Probably not. But you know what? I think they're the 5 most important, and everything else you can work out by just implementing those 5 and paying close enough attention to what the hell's going on, which is a different problem altogether, but best I can do. That, my friends, is all I have on adulting.